please call people to join us, because as you can see, it's interesting and it's going to get even more interesting. Thank you, Ibitunde. Ibiyemi. Okay, sorry, the host has, okay, yes, you can, I think you can all see it. I think you need to decide which breakout session you want to join, which breakout session you want to join. Finding new opportunities in the finance industry, technology as your career, corporate to entrepreneurship, taking a leap, career planning, and prospects of being a fitness and nutrition trainer. Sorry, do we, is it everybody viewing this, or hosts? Is there something we can do so that this is not in front of us all? Okay. Okay, sorry. It says that it's going to end in 5 minutes. So I don't see anybody going into career planning. It's important to plan the career. I guess we'll put this up again soon. Okay. And maybe you can get a drink while we're at it. I'm going to get a drink. Ibiyemi?
Good morning.
Okay, are we going to see your face? Yes.
Good morning.
Morning, Ibiyemi, good to see you. Please, host, can you minimize this, the poll? How are you, Ibiyemi? What time is it where you are?
It is 6:18 a.m.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much for joining us and looking bright and ready to, you know, take us from where we are to where we're going. Okay, Ibiyemi, welcome. I'm just going to read your bio. Everybody can read it, but I'm going to read your bio. Did you enjoy the first session?
I did. He took a lot of my points, but I did.
Good, 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 good. Ibiyemi is a career consultant at Ryerson University in Toronto, Canada. Her background is in HR. She has 6 years experience in recruitment and coaching and the coaching industry. She focuses on business and technology. Everybody is doing technology. Everybody. I better just change what it is I am doing, honestly. Could you all mute microphones, please? Or host, can you mute all our microphones except Ibiyemi and I? In addition to working full-time, she's completing an MBA part-time focused on entrepreneurship and social innovation. So these are one of the people we're talking about who's doing so many things. I also know she's very involved in church, but I guess it boils down to priorities and discipline, like Ibitunde said. In her spare time, Ibiyemi also has a career coaching business called Foot in the Door Consulting, or FITD, where she helps young professionals identify their career goals and create effective strategies to achieve them. So without much ado, please, can you just take down the poll so we can see Ibiyemi, because I know she's going to be sharing her screen. Please take down the poll so that we can see Ibiyemi. So Ibiyemi, welcome again. And like you know, you have 30 minutes to speak, and then we're going to have a 15-minute question and answer. Can you share your screen?
That is what I'm trying to do.
You should have the share icon.
Yes.
Okay, so.
Sorry, give me 1 second. This is interesting.
Maybe
It's telling me I have to leave the meeting first. I'll be right.
okay. Maybe it's also the breakout session that we can see. Tony, please, can you take this down, the breakout session? Or maybe I can minimize it actually. Okay, sorry, yeah, okay. I actually should have minimized it, I'm so sorry. I need to get more technology savvy. Okay, and they've told us that even an 80-year-old can do it. So there we are. But please, we had said some rules before. If you have any questions, please just type out the questions or comments and we will get to them. Ibiyemi is just going in and coming back, going out and coming back in because she has a presentation and she wants to share her screen. You're going to hear a lot of things over and over again, and I hope by the end of the day, it would have helped to reinforce some of these things. Before we started this, I didn't think TTBI would have a mentorship program, but as of 40 minutes or 50 minutes or 1 hour into the program, we have set that up. And I think this tells us a board to find out whether we should have mentors. And I think that you know, I believe that we're all going to, at least the speakers today are all going to have to do some mentorship. As you can see, I am just talking, waiting for Ibiyemi to go out and come back in.
So I'm back in,
okay.
And okay, let's see if this works this time. There we go. Technology.
Okay.
Can everyone see my screen?
We can all see.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for introducing me. So today I really want to spend some time talking about what we're all talking about, talks that break inertia. What's next after COVID-19 is over and what the next steps look like. So my name is Ibiyemi Balogun, and when I was getting introduced, it was actually really interesting for me to think back to, I guess, all the things that have happened so far in my life. And I wanted to kind of share some words or identifiers that I would say I define myself by. So I use this word creator just to identify some of those words there and highlight the things that are really important to me. So career consulting, career coaching is really important. Being an entrepreneur, being people focused. I think the fact that I'm also Nigerian is obviously quite important, just because of all the different kind of connotations that means, hardworking, resiliency, all of those different kinds of words. I would say I'm definitely a recruiter at heart. I always look for opportunities to connect one person to another. And it doesn't necessarily always have to be from a job perspective, right? But I encourage you to all spend some time really thinking about all of the different identifiers that you have and those different contexts that you play into when you're thinking about career planning, because career planning for the most part is about taking a step back and taking stock. And really making sure that you're able to really look at your life from a far perspective and then zone in on that. So to begin, I wanted to go back to this prompt that was given to us. So, victim or victor. And it's about asking yourself certain questions, right? So where do you find yourself, right? And I want this to be a little bit engaging. But I want us to think about how we're actually doing. I think the question, a lot of the times people ask, how are you? And, your immediate inclination is, oh, I'm fine. But it's like, are you really fine? Are you really, really fine? What is actually going on, right? How are you feeling mentally, right? Because I know that is your outlook on everything. Your approach is very, very important. So how are you feeling mentally? Right? how are you feeling financially, right? Are you taking risks or making choices because of those financial situations that you're currently in? Or are you looking forward? Are you looking for the future? Are you looking towards hope, right? And then specifically, how has this season affected your job or career, right? So I do want to engage, and I do want to hear from a few people. And, you know, if you can put some messages in the chat, I can take a look at them, and then we can just get a stock of how people are feeling so far. So I'm gonna stop here for a quick second, and I really want to ask people how they're doing. So if you have a second, feel free to write in the chat and tell us a little bit more about how you're doing. Exhausted? Okay. Definitely. That's definitely one of those thought processes there. And I think the exhaustion just comes from the not knowing where the deadline is. I know that that's kind of where I am sometimes, is in a situation of, okay, I can do this, I can push through, I can be resilient, but what is the timeline? Excited is obviously great, because it's like, for the first time, we actually have time to do things. I know that for me, the fact that I can do breakfast, lunch, and dinner is exciting to me, and I think it through. And I actually look at that process there is exciting, because I'm, for the first time, taking care of my health because I have that time. We have here motivated. We have here overwhelmed. I absolutely understand that. There's a lot of information, right? Information overwhelm is a real thing. And, people struggle with managing what to take in, right? And the reality is, a lot of the times we take things in and we don't even realize that we're taking it in. So it actually starts to show through our body, right? Aches and pains in the shoulders, things like that, that's hard. Stressed, that is a real thing. Stress is actually funny, because I've been doing some research around stress. And stress can obviously be good, but a lot of the times when we think stress, we think from a negative perspective, right? And if you think about it, it's kind of like that inertia thought process. Stress is just a shift in the atmosphere, a shift in the circumstance that affects an individual. The minute it gets bad is when it becomes chronic, right? Episodic stress is here and there, but when it becomes chronic, it actually has a lot of negative impacts on your health. Any other comments before I continue? If you're elated, anticipating, I love the anticipating. Anticipating is definitely something that we should be doing, because there's so much on the cusp. There's so much information out there, and the way we transition, or the way we think about it, is really what can break inertia, as this topic has been about. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the presentation. But the reason I wanted to ask is I really wanted us to, like I said, take a step back, really think about what are those things that we're actually dealing with. And if we know where we're at, it'll be helpful to know where we're going, right? I want to spend the first little bit of this conversation really talking about my career and some of the things that I've learned so far. And then I want to add value by being able to show you how to plan what's coming up next. So we did my mom did a quick introduction about my background and my timeline. And typically when I have conversations with people, this is what they think the timeline is. I graduated in 2014, and it was phenomenal. I went to a great school. I decided to go back to school and do my HR certificate. And I was actually lucky enough to get a job right in that same field. So I was working and going to school at the same time, and it was a lot of knowledge transfer. So I was able to transition, and I did that for about 3 years. And then about a year ago, I actually started my MBA. which is just a story in its own. But I was also able to transition into a career consulting kind of role, right? And usually when I have that conversation, when it's a quick, in and out, this is what people think the timeline looks like. What it actually looks like is something like this, right? There's a lot of ups and downs in the process. I would say that, I started off my education not necessarily how I wanted to, right? I didn't actually get into the program that I wanted to get into. I didn't have the grades that I needed to get into the program that I wanted to do. I wanted to study business management and I wanted to study HR, but I didn't get into that program. And at the school I was, they gave you the opportunity to get into the program after your first year. So I worked really hard. I applied to get in after my first year, still didn't get in. Then I tried really hard and I tried to get into my second year, still didn't get in. And I ended up not getting into the program at all. And I had to kind of settle, for lack of a better word, for something else. And ended up doing economics. Thinking back, that was actually a really good step at that time. And I didn't realize that that was going to be what was needed to get to where I am today. But I would say I feel like I started off on the wrong foot. 2 years into the program, like I said, I didn't get into the program that I was looking for. So I decided to start working on campus to earn some extra money. But I got the opportunity to actually do a summer internship because I've always known that I wanted to do HR. My mom's in HR. And I was that like 5-10-year-old kid that just wanted to be like her mom. So I knew that that was something that I wanted to do, but I hadn't ever tried it out. So I was able to get an internship and actually start working in that field. And I actually really enjoyed myself. I was able to connect with different Nigerian companies and look at, salary surveys. And at the time, it was really interesting work. But while I was at school, I was coaching students. I was working on coaching high school students actually. And we would do like homework prep and we would do like long-term planning and just little things like that. And we would get those experiences on. Cut to 2014 where I actually graduated, which was like a high because like the program was quite tough and I didn't think I was going to graduate, to be honest. But I was able to get through it and graduate on time, which was great. So I graduated in 2014 and I got an unpaid internship. And that was phenomenal because I was able to still learn. And then about a month and a half later, I actually got a full-time job, which was phenomenal. And I was excited. I called home. I was like, this is what I'm doing. My career has started. I'm excited. And then 3 months later, I get laid off. And I'm like, what is this? What is happening? They don't want me, like just a lot of emotions. How am I going to call home and say, oh, I'm staying in Canada, but I don't have a job. And, 3 months ago, I was telling everybody, my mom had sent emails and messages to everybody. She has a job. And, 3 months in, the job is gone. And it was kind of like a whirlwind of like, okay, what do I do next? I remember that day that I actually lost the job and I was walking back home. I was walking to the subway and I was actually like, I was crying because I was a little bit confused as to what just happened. And I bumped into an old colleague and he definitely saw that I was distraught. So he was like, okay, come, let's go and sit down and have a drink. And he says, your career will be fine. You're young, you're motivated, you're passionate, you'll be fine. You'll figure out what your next step is. And he specifically said, you know what, come sit with me next week. We'll go to Starbucks. We'll look over your resume. We'll plan out what it is that you want to do. And I always tell him to till date that was a turning point in my career, actually. It's important to have mentors. It's important to have sponsors. It's important to have people that are going to work on your behalf. Exactly. It's so important. So as luck would have it, 3 weeks later, I was actually working a new job. I actually did not believe that this was going to happen, but I was working a new job. It was phenomenal. I started as an intern, really not making any money at all, to be honest. It wasn't, it wasn't a flashy job, but I was able to prove myself. And within 6 months, I had actually been promoted, and they had tripled my salary. So things were looking up. It was still very hard because at that time is when I decided to go back and study HR. So I would go to go to work 9 to 5, and then I would go to class 6 to 9, about 4 days a week for about a full year. And that was a lot. That was a lot on just mentally taking HR exams, sitting down, studying, going to class while starting off in a new career. It was definitely difficult, but it definitely took a nosedive in 2016 when my boss actually quit. And, it's so, you never realize how much you have it good when you have a good boss, when you have a bad boss. And, when he quit at that time, it was kind of like the person that was fighting for his team was now gone. And the next person that was going to be fighting was actually me. And that was an uphill battle of trying to get my new boss to understand what was important and what we needed to do and how we needed to transform and how we needed to go to the next level, and being stopped and being stunted and being blocked every single time. And although it was something that I was enjoying doing because I was working in recruitment and talent management, it was really quite difficult to continue to stay in that environment. So I said to myself, you know what? I'm going to leave. I'm going to find another job. I'm going to leave. I feel like I've hit my plateau here. The organization was quite small. And I remember the exact moment when I said, actually, I'm done. I went and spoke to my boss, and I was asking for mentorship. And he was like, oh, well, you're one of the senior members on the team. And I'm like, that is a problem. Because at the time, I think I was like 24. I was like, how am I a senior member on the team at 24? This is not the right team for me. Let me look for opportunities, because I never want to be the smartest person in the room, right? You always want to look to learn from other people. So I started this journey in 2017 looking for a new job, and it actually took me 1 whole year. And this, when I think back to that time, it's actually a little bit crazy to think that I was able to sustain for that 1 year, because it was a 1 year journey of just asking and talking to people and networking in the evenings and taking classes and doing things and talking to people and interviewing, looking for that job. And then the opportunity came up in Ryerson University, where I currently work. And I just knew that was where I wanted to work. And even though I had known a few people in the environment, I had talked to a few people, I knew some people in that space, it still took me a very long time, right? I applied to the same job 4 times. Yeah, 4 times over the full year. I interviewed about 14 different times. So it was a very rigorous process. But I really knew that was what it is that I wanted to do. And I wanted to work with students. And in Toronto, Ryerson University is one of the biggest universities in the city. And I didn't want to travel far to go to work. So I knew that this is where I wanted to be. But that's how I ended up getting the job. I've been in the job now for 2 years. And then I started my MBA last year. My MBA journey has also been a whirlwind. I tried for about 2 years to get into the program. But, as luck would have it, I finally got into the program in 2019, and I started that. And the journey is still going, but it looks and sounds, it's still at times quite difficult, right? When you're working full time and you're in school part time and you're playing those two parts, it's really, really hard to manage that, right? So all of that to say, a lot of the times people look at, like Ibiyemi was saying before, people look at other people and say, oh, this is something that you've just been doing, right? But if you look back at like where people start, it actually is like a 10, 15-year journey just to get to where it is that they want to go, right? My focus now is really to help and help people understand what the process looks like, all right? To identify what your career is going to look like, you really have to start with where you're at now, right? So your current skill sets, your current experiences, your current education. And education doesn't always have to be, what did you study in school, right? Education, you get through so many different avenues, through, different courses that you can take online, or just even experiences that you've developed. What are you learning, right? And I feel like a lot of the times people don't know how to articulate that, right? You can work in a job, you can do something for a year, 2 years, and someone asks you, what do you do? And it's like, oh, I do things. And it's like, well, what does that mean? Let's break it down, right? And it also starts with your outlook. And I think we've talked about this before, but outlook is really, really important because, how you approach a certain topic is going to be the definer there. I'm thinking of actually a quote from Nelson Mandela. And he says, may your choices always reflect your hopes and not your fears. And that to me was kind of a pivotal moment when I heard that. It's like a reframing opportunity. When you're faced with a choice, when you're faced with something that's coming up, when you're faced with a hard decision, are you going to approach it from a place of fear of like, oh my gosh, this is bleak, this is going to be so hard, I won't be able to do it? Or are you going to approach it from a place of hope? This could be fun. This could be an opportunity. I could learn this, right? So I would encourage everyone to just do that kind of analysis when you're faced with a big decision. Am I making this choice from a place of fear? Or am I making this choice from a place of hope, right? But when you start looking, like I said, about career, you start with where you're at, but you also have to look far ahead, right? You have to look far ahead into what is to come. Where do you want to go? A lot of the times people kind of just start doing things. And it's like, okay, I'm starting to do things and, we'll see where we are. But the reality is you really have to have an idea of what that potentially could look like, right? I always give the analogy of traveling or driving, right? Nowadays, obviously, we have GPS and we can pinpoint the exact location, but sometimes you're just looking to take a drive, but you know that you need to go downtown, right? If you start taking highways that are leading north, you're never going to hit downtown. Like, it's never going to happen. And you might get to a dead end, you might have to turn out, or you find a back road and you finally make it downtown, but you're almost out of gas. So the reality is you really have to think forward and look at 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, what do you want to be doing, right? And it doesn't have to be, I want this job at this company. That's not the goal, because life will take you on a different ride, but you have to have an idea so that as you are going through the process, potentially where that could lead, right? To do that, I think Ibiyemi mentioned it before, you really have to start with yourself and your interests and your passions. And then you have to look at your abilities, what you can do, and then you have to look at those in between, right? So, if you have strong passion, if you're interested and you have strong passion for something, but you can't actually do it, no one is going to hire you to do it. On the flip side, if you have the ability, if you have the skill sets, if you can't do it, but you don't actually enjoy doing it, you're going to be miserable in that job. Or you're not going to do it for too long. You're going to look for something else to do. And work doesn't have to be miserable. It can actually be quite enjoyable, right? And the idea is looking for those intersections, looking for those places of, I love it, I can do it, I have the skills, I'm confident enough to continue to develop myself. High anxiety comes from when you're pursuing a passion, but you don't have the skill set. There's a lot of anxiety around that. And there's a lot of imposter syndrome around that, because it's, am I going to be found out today because I don't know how to do this thing that they've asked me to do? So it's really, really important to have both of those pieces working together to get to where it is that you want to go. My job when I'm working with my clients and my students is really looking at that wave. How do we get there? What is the process of actually getting there, right? And that process is just research. It's talking to people, it's doing, research on industries, doing research on companies, and then really coming up with a plan, right? So, I need to go to X. How do I get from A to X, right? What are the different steps, right? And I will be going over that more in the breakout session, but I just wanted to basically break it down a little bit more here. First step is obviously taking inventory. Like I said, identifying where you're currently at. What is your education? What is your experience? What skills do you have? But most importantly, what are you missing? And I can send these questions to the team afterwards, and they can disseminate out so that people can actually answer those questions. But you really have to be honest with yourself, right? And you can't look at somebody somewhere has made money doing that, so I'm going to go and do it. You really, really have to start with you. What do I currently have? What have I developed? What do I want to continue doing? What skills do I have, right? Then you want to identify the end goal. Like I said, what are those passions? What do they look like? What are those abilities? What can I do? What are the intersections? And most importantly, what are the keywords, right? So, when you're doing research, you can't really put into Google, Google, show me my career. You can't do that. You have to go and you have to ask specific questions. You have to do keyword searches. I get so many requests and so many messages on LinkedIn with people saying, hi, my name is X. What should I do? And I'm like, who are you? What do you want to do? I can't tell you what you want to do if you haven't started doing some of that research on your own. And I think, that's where people struggle in terms of creating those valuable relationships, especially those mentoring relationships. You expect the other person to take the burden of your own career. But the reality is you have to be in control of your own career. You have to be calling the shots. You have to know what that outlook is, so that if somebody is able to help you, they know where to come in. They know where to say, oh, I can introduce you to X. Oh, we can talk about this. We can do this. But if you don't have those ideas, if you don't have those keywords, if you haven't done your own personal research, I can't see the future. I don't know who you are. I don't know what it is that you've done. I don't, and if it's over LinkedIn, I don't necessarily have the time to go back and forth with you to try and figure out what that potentially could look like, right? So it's really important to do that kind of research on yourself. And then lastly would be mapping out that actual journey. So, looking at your application tools. Is your resume good? Is your cover letter good? Do you have a portfolio? Are you doing interview preparation? So that when you are being called, when you're being asked, when you're being called to action. So, you're doing this research, you're connecting with people, and someone says, send me your resume. That's not the time to now start working on the resume. At that point, it's a little bit late. You should have that, as you're doing your research, you're creating that resume, you're creating that, that portfolio. I'm going to talk about this a little bit more in the breakout session, but that portfolio is really just all of those things that you can start to do before people ask you to do it. Okay. The next step will then be looking at your, application methods. Where are you putting those applications out, right? Are you on LinkedIn, right? I did a quick search. There's Jobberman, there's NG Careers. Are you on there? Do you know where those opportunities are located, right? And then networking. Networking is the biggest.
Sorry, there's Box and Cedar.
There is Box and Cedar as well. Networking is really, really important, right? Meeting people, having conversations, building that connection, right? But you're not building your career or building those relationships from an opportunistic perspective. So a lot of the times people reach out to me, hi, my name is so and so, I need a job. And I'm like, okay, why should I give you a job? I don't know who you are. I don't know what you've done. I don't know, what I mean? Or please refer me to your employer. Why? Because at the end of the day, that's also my reputation, right? I consider myself a recruiter. So on my own team, the last 4 people we hired were my own personal referees, and it's people I've worked with, people I've spoken to, and I have a good track record there. But if I don't know you, why should I refer you? Right? It's about building those relationships, and you build those relationships through having conversations, right? And genuine interest, right? So that first job that I had that I told you that I lost in 3 months, how I even got that job is because I went to a conference. I went to an HR conference in Canada. It's one of the largest ones, and I couldn't afford the ticket, but the trade show was free. So I went in as a student, and I went and I talked to everybody. There was about 250 people there. different companies, right? And it wasn't a job fair, it was a trade show. So it's HR companies showing, you know, their new technology or their new system or their new way of doing X, Y, and Z. And I literally went around and I talked to everybody. And I ended up talking to a gentleman. And after the conversation, he was like, wow, you're really passionate about this industry. Here's my card, give me a call tomorrow. And at the time I was like, okay, if you want to talk more about the industry. So I collected his card. The next day he gave me a call and said, you know, come in for an interview. And at that time I was like, interview for like what? Like there's no particular job posted anywhere. I came in for that interview nevertheless. And the next day he hired me and I started working a week later. And, you know, he later revealed to me that there was actually no job. Like they created the position around me. And it was basically from a perspective of, this person is really passionate. This person wants to learn. This person is genuinely interested. Is there something that we can do to use this energy towards what it is that we want to do, you know, down the line? And at that time, he actually really took me on as a mentee, right? He was kind of my sponsor. I remember we would sit down and have a lunch, and he was the one that showed me the landscape of recruiting in Toronto or in Canada. And it's like, these are the temp agencies, these are the perm agencies, this is how, you know, get started, these are what people are looking for. And I remember we used to draw these huge diagrams around what that would look like. But that really just stems from me genuinely being interested in that industry, right? And not necessarily saying, hey, please be my mentor because I need a mentor because it's important to move forward in my career. It's like, hey, I want to learn this. You're already doing this. Can we have a conversation? Can we, you know, rub minds to figure out what the next step could look like? I think that is the end of this presentation. I'm going to go into a little bit more details in the breakout session about some of the stuff we've spoken about today, but I can definitely take questions.
Fantastic. I even just heard some things for the first time myself. So amazing. So please, if you have any questions, but we have some questions from before. But before we go into those questions, you know, there were some buzzwords you used: motivation, being motivated. I thought, you know, it really struck a chord, you know, being motivated, because if you're not motivated about anything, if you're not passionate about anything, it's going to be difficult for you to be happy at work.
Yes.
You're going to just forever just be at work and just do the work because 20 days make one pay, or however many days it is. You kept harping on mentoring, and you showed examples in your own life how mentors really took you far. And I just remember, you know, at the beginning I was saying how come I got into HR, and how I first of all studied English and then I studied law, and after 2 years realized this isn't what I want to do. And then, hey, I found myself in HR. But guess what? Like I said, my father was one of the people who set up CIPM in Nigeria, and he was president of CIPM for 8 years. So from age 11, age 12, I was attending HR conferences. I've been reading his books, and I had sort of, you know, I just used to drool whenever he was talking about what he was doing at work. So that passion had been built in there, you know, and I quickly found where my passion was. I'm just one of those people, and so are you. I can't have a conversation of, oh, the weather is nice. The minute I start a conversation with you, I'm going into, so what are you doing? So how is your life? How are you feeling? You know, I mean, I meet people, I don't know them, and 10 minutes they're crying, I'm handing them tissue, you know, that is the heart. So, you know, mentoring. So what I'm saying is that I got mentored by my father, clearly, even though I didn't even realize that. And then you talked about research. Because I'm in recruitment as well, it drives me around the bend when somebody says, I'm looking for a job. And I'm like, okay, where? And they're like, I will do anything anywhere. And you're thinking, okay, I can't help you. Maybe I'm not a good enough recruitment consultant. So research is key. And, you know, I was speaking with Ibitunde and saying that, what do we tell parents, because some people are on here not for themselves, but for, their children and so on. And I think it's important to do research. We have a youngest one, and we know the amount of research we have all done into, you're going into university, which one, what are you studying, what are you going to do after, and so many other things. So research is critical. Mm-hmm. It is critical. Mm-hmm. It's critical. And then you put there, you write a plan. I loved your diagram, because it looks like, oh, and I just left here, when you're telling people, oh, I had challenges. They're like, how? But you worked there, you did this and you did that. They didn't realize that it's all like this and like that. So it's important to have a plan, and knowing that even with the plan, things may not work according to plan. There's this joke going around now that the worst expenditure was on a 2020 planner, because my own planner has been empty for the last 2-3 months. So what is the plan? And I guess that is what one will be sitting with a mentor. And the truth is that a mentor is not necessarily going to sit down and create a plan. A mentor is just going to give you a picture, just like you said yours did. Say this is what is this, that is what it is. But at the end of the day, it's still up to you.
Yeah.
And then I think I've talked about that, because I made a few notes here. Where do you want to go? And when I train personal mastery, I always say that you must have a clear picture of where you want to go, so that when you get there, you will know you're there. Because it is so easy to say, oh, I'm going somewhere, and then you get there and you don't even realize that this is where you are, or you stop short of where it is you're going. Ibiyemi, that was an amazing presentation, and thank you very much. I've been getting all kinds of comments, about how great. Just a few questions we had from the last time. When do I know when to quit?
When do you know when to quit?
Yeah.
You dread going into the office. That's a good place to start. I think for so many of us, we're not in tune with ourselves. Mm-hmm. And you really have to check in with yourself often, right? Mm-hmm. You're not quite sure what is actually going on, but they said we should do this, so I'm doing it. And you have conversations with people, and because everybody is very surface level, you don't realize that people are actually like struggling with different things. So, I'm about to actually write a blog. It's called All Grown Up. It's about adulting and all those adulting things that nobody talks about. And I think when to quit, or when to move on, when it no longer serves you, right? And it no longer serves your purpose, which is to say you need to understand what your purpose is, right? You need to understand what that potentially could look like. I've been reading this book. It's called Designing Your Life, and it's kind of changing the way that I do some of my coaching. It's kind of changing the way I do some of my coaching, because I always used to start with, well, what are you passionate about? And I realized that the book actually says about 80% of people don't actually know what they're passionate about. And I think that shook me, because I think I've always known, because I've obviously had good mentors around me, to see what it potentially could look like. So it started getting me thinking about how to coach people around discovering their passion. And the reality is there is no one calling. There is no one end goal. And it's crazy for me to say now, because if you had asked me this 5 years ago, I'd be like, yeah, someone's been an HR consultant just like my mom. And now I'm like, I'm not even necessarily in HR like I was in HR. And does that mean I'm never going to be in HR? Probably not. It just means that this is where I am right now. and giving yourself that opportunity to try different things, right? The book is written by two designers from Stanford University. So they're professors and they look at design. And one of the principles of design is just trial and error, trying things out. And if it doesn't work, you try something else. And if that doesn't work, you try something else. But you still have an end goal in mind. So when you're at a job and, you know, you're trying and you're trying and you're trying and you're trying and nothing is fitting out, you also need to create a criteria. After X number of tries, I'm done, right? And then you can leave it, right? You can lay it down, you can leave it, right? For me, that was laying it down to God as to, you know, I've done my bit. I've done what I needed to do. You know, they said I should come for interview, I've interviewed. They said I should talk to this person, I've talked to that person. They said I should write this, I've written that. They said I should speak to, I've done it. So at one point, I literally laid it down and I said, okay, I'm done. And I stopped. I actually stopped. And literally the next month, they were like, so we'd like to offer you the job. And I was like, wow. So all it took was knowing that I've tried my best, right? And that's the thing, you have to try your best, right? We're Nigerians are notoriously resilient people. I read a meme the other day, you know, if you put a Nigerian in front of a wall and you try to box them in, they will break the wall and continue to go, right? We are resilient people. So you know what trying your best looks like. So don't lie to yourself. Don't say, you know, I'm trying my best when you're really not trying your best. When you're really not trying your best. And ask people around you. And it's so important to have accountability partners. Someone that can say, you said you wanted to do a certificate in project management. How many modules are you in, right? I'm thinking of my roommate and she's looking at doing project management and she has, you know, 69 modules to go. So every 3-4 days, so what module are you on? Okay, so you have done 17 modules now. Okay, when's the next one happening? You know, and it's just, sometimes you just need other people to be involved. Right? Because it's so easy for you to just abandon something if you haven't told anybody. But if to just save face, I've told this person that I'm doing this thing, so now I have to do it. Right? So even if that's what it is that you're thinking of, it's important to start that process and actually, you know, try your best, and then, you know, lean it up against the criteria. If your criteria for what you work looks like doesn't look like that anymore, it's time to move on. It's time to try your hand at something else. It's time to try your hand at a different activity, right?
Yeah. Someone said to me there was a 4-day holiday around a weekend. So I think maybe Easter or some holiday like that. And on Monday evening, somebody said, oh, I have to go to work tomorrow. And I was like, okay, there's a problem. Because you said, you know, when you're done. I said, okay, there is a problem. You know, you've been at home for 4 days and you're not looking forward to going to work.
Yep.
There is a problem.
Yeah.
And then you said, when the job is not serving you. I remember one of the first jobs I left. Why did I leave it? It was hundreds of years ago. But there was maybe a shoibi of 1,200 and I couldn't afford it. And I thought, what's going on? I'm leaving home at 6 a.m. I'm coming back at 10 p.m. and I cannot afford this thing. You know, I knew it was time to either have a conversation with the boss or to say it's time to look for another job.
Yeah.
So there are many indicators of, you know, when you're done. The fact that you are even asking, when should I be looking at leaving my job, it is time.
You're there. You're there.
Because, you know, it's something that, you know, you should just be excited about. Sorry, I just wanted to look at one or two. There was another question. Oh, I think you've answered this. It says, how do you manage passion? I feel everyone has more than one or two things they're passionate about. How do you prioritize? Especially when there are 3 or 4 things you feel you can pursue.
So I struggle with this. This is something that I definitely struggle with. But I'm interested in this and I want to do that and I need to do this, but and you don't realize that like you're one person. So, and it's funny to say, but like I remember I used to schedule myself back to back unknowingly, right? So I'll be like, oh no, but that's like school Ibiyemi. School Ibiyemi doesn't have anything on her plate. So if school Ibiyemi can do that, and then somebody will ask something from church, church Ibiyemi, sure, her schedule is open, and that's the one time she can do. Oh, and friend Ibiyemi has 3 birthday parties, but Lola Day's birthday, I will go. So it's like you're scheduling yourself as if you're multiple people. But the reality is like you're still the same person that has to do all of those activities. And someone put it very nicely to me. She's like, if you're burnt out, you can't actually do the thing that you want to do. So the people that you're trying to help, you can't actually help, right? And I found myself working in career coaching. I work, like I said, at a university, and the university is one of the largest in the city. And my particular cohort of students is 2,500, so 2,500 students that I'm responsible for. And I've met with about 800 of them one-on-one. And, you know, at first I used to say, oh, make me responsible for your job search. We'll work on it together. We'll blah, 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 blah. And, you know, 1 year in, I was like, wow, this is not sustainable. And I think I was trying to overcompensate because I feel like when I was in university, I felt like I didn't have that from my university. So I wanted to create an opportunity where students could feel comfortable with navigating their path. So I felt like I was dropped in a jungle and I had to cut my way through and figure it out. And, you know, for me, I was like, I'm really passionate about helping people figure it out. I'm really passionate about, you know, helping people, you know, cut through the trees and create a path. So in my mind, I'm like, well, you don't have to be in the jungle. You can just create a path for people. But when she read back to me, she was like, there's one thing to create a path. There's another thing to now say, okay, jump on my back. Let's walk through this thing and I'm cutting down trees in your way, right? So for me, I had to understand that like, because you're helping somebody doesn't mean that you need to do it for them. And doesn't mean that you need to, you know, be in control of their whole career path, right? All of this to say, you know, passion is amazing. Passion is phenomenal, right? But you have to prioritize, right? And you prioritize not necessarily based on the thing that is the most fun to do, because that's what we always want to do. Oh, but like, I know I have all these different passions and, you know, I love giving conversations, but doing the actual presentation, I'm just like, can somebody else do it? I don't want to spend time creating this presentation. I don't care for this presentation. I want to talk to people. I want to have those conversations. But to have those conversations, to tell a good story, you have to do the presentation. So it's prioritizing what you need to do when you need to do it, right? And creating more space in your time, creating more space in your day, right? I think during this quarantine period, and we've been quarantined for much longer than you guys have. So it's been about 10 weeks of quarantine. And, you know, the first week I was just sleeping anyhow, waking up anyhow, you know, rolling over, signing into my work, all of those different things. And I think at one point I was just like, this is nonsense, actually, right? What are you doing up to this time? So I set a bedtime. I set it for 10:30 p.m. and I actually put it on my phone. I put a reminder on my phone that says 10:30 bedtime. And the first night I did it, I just turned up the thing. I was like, I'm still up, Joe. The second time I did it, I actually looked at the 10:30, I closed my phone, and I went to bed. The third time I did it, by 10:15, I was already tired, right? So to me, setting that bedtime was so important because it was what I needed to do. Sleep is just so necessary. I can't even talk about the benefits of sleep. But what that did was that it gave me more time in the mornings, right? So the fact that I've been up since 5:30, because it's only 7 o'clock here, is because I was able to go to bed early. So I get up every day, 6 o'clock, 6:30, and I have 3 hours before work starts at 9 o'clock. I work out in the morning, I do my breakfast, which is breakfast. I've never done breakfast. But breakfast is something that's now, I realize that is something that does, helps you develop that energy to move forward. So breakfast, I do my devotion, I do all the different things that I need to do, and I create a different schedule every morning. So by 10:30, I'm at sleep. And it was a mind shift. It was a mind shift of like, be sure that you're watching until the middle of the night, will be there tomorrow. The conversation that you're having with XYZ person, you can have it tomorrow. The blog that you're working on, you can't even really pay attention at this time. You work best in the morning, so do it at 6 a.m. Don't do it at 9 p.m. Right? So that shift for me has been very, very good with identifying what's important, and then realizing that you won't be able to do everything at the same time. Right? So, in my bio, I do run a business, and I do career coaching, but I've put it on hold. And, at first it was very painful, but I want to help people, and I want to do this, and I want to do that, and I want to do blah, blah, blah. And it was very painful for me. But the reality is there was no time, right? I would have class in the evenings, and my class would end at 9 o'clock, 9:30. I get on the subway, I'm home by, 9:45, 10 o'clock. And at that time, I'm tired. I've been talking all day. I'm not trying to talk to anybody. Do you understand? I don't have time to talk to anybody, and it's not serving me. And how much are they really paying me? Like, that's another thing with the Ashwebi comments. I resonate with that. I'm doing all this work, and I can't even afford this thing here. So it's prioritizing by knowing, okay, I can't always do the fun thing, right? I have to know what's important to me. And I need to be able to fuel myself in a way that allows me to be better. So sleep, and eating well, and planning, right? And planning doesn't have to be like a whole process, right? There's something called decision fatigue, and making too many decisions. So by the time it's like half day, noon, 1 o'clock, you've made so many decisions, and you're over it, right? I've been using this app online about healthy eating, and they asked, how many decisions do you think the average person makes around food every single day? In my head, I was like 10 decisions, 15 decisions. It actually comes down to around 200 decisions. From what plate should I use? What cutlery should I use? Where should I eat? How should I eat? What am I doing when I'm eating? And it's like, you don't realize you're making all of these decisions. So by the time you actually now want to make those strategic decisions, have those conversations, think deeply, you're exhausted. So how about pre-planning, making decisions beforehand, right? I'm going back now to my, food timetable that we used to have as kids of Monday we're eating this, Tuesday we're eating this. I'm making a timetable for myself, and I am planning it out, because I can't continue to every day. So what am I eating? Okay, so what is for lunch? Okay, so what is for dinner? And it's, it's really, it's planning is really, really important. And I think I've gone on for quite a while.
But you've covered a lot of things. And the next speaker is actually struggling to get in, just like a few people struggled to get in.
Okay.
Try it on my phone.
If there's if there's any last question, I can take it, but we'll be talking a lot more in the breakout session.
Yes, there was Osoro, the person who asked Ibitunde a question. He wants to ask a question. Is he still there? He asked Ibitunde a question, and he had put up his hand to ask a question.
Feel free to ask in the chat as well.
Yes. Sorry, I'm just having to deal with the next speaker. She's trying to come in and she's having challenges.
I will say though, there is one book that I would recommend.
Please recommend.
Like I said, it's called Designing Your Life. And they look at your life as a journey, and they have very specific questions that they'll ask you. You know, why am I here? What am I doing? Why does it matter? What is my purpose? The author is Bill Burnett and Dave Evans. They're Stanford professors. I can type that into the chat afterwards. But they go through and they ask specific questions. You know, designers love questions. How do I find a job that I like or even love? How do I build my career? How do I balance my career with my family? And they talk about life design as, you know, an opportunity to actually make it whatever you want to make it. It doesn't have to be structured in the way that people always think about. And they go over, you know, what is your work view? What is your life view? What is your play view? A lot of people forget about play. And they talk about how essential play is. And play is literally, you know, anything that you do that has no purpose. So a lot of people are like, oh, but I like cooking. Cooking is not a play thing because, yeah, like the purpose is to eat it. Something that literally you do that has no purpose. So I got a coloring book, and I color for just to get off a screen. This dashboard, I don't know if anyone can see, but it basically has 4 different areas there, and it talks about work, play, love, and health. And it asks you to fill it out by asking a few questions. You know, how is your love dashboard? What does that look like? What does your health dashboard look like? So I recommend, you know, getting this book. I think it's a really good book for reframing how you think about your career and what your long-term goals could look like, as well as giving you very practical career advice.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much, Ibiyemi. Nkemdi, our next speaker, is still trying to get on. I'm sure she will get on in a minute. A few people seem to have, you know, seem to have had challenges trying to log on. Quite a few people. I think there are a few people having to watch on Facebook because it's just been a challenge for some, you know. Sorry, I just want to round up with the Ibiyemi. Thank you so much, Ibiyemi. It's I think you sort of like let the cat out of the bag if people didn't know that you are my daughter and Ibitunde is my son. So I sort of like know a bit of the story, but really not as much, not looked at it in that same way. And this thing of one person thinking you're 4 people, I have that problem as well. I mean, I go out to meetings and my husband always says, don't volunteer when you get there, because I want to volunteer, you know, they want to do this, oh, I can do it. They want to do that, oh, I can do it. And then I get everything on my plate and I'm looking at it and thinking, how did I get into this place? So, you know, there's some of us like that. I mean, there's something, when we were younger, they used to say, oh, learn to multitask. But now we know that multitasking is rubbish and it's not possible because you are likely to do, you will always do one thing better than the other if you're trying to do 2 things at the same time. So it's a fallacy that you can multitask. Thank you very much. We don't seem to have any other questions. We'll just put the poll up and I'll try and speak to Nkemdi. We are ahead of time as I had thought we would be, because, you know, having done stuff like this in the physical world, you know, you feel that, oh,